Chasing dreams can be a wonderful thing. It can also lead to lonely and dark paths. This is the story of James, who learned a valuable lesson while chasing his dream. James, 25, previously graduated high school and immediately began working for his father at an auto shop in a small town in Oklahoma. His father made a living as a mechanic, while his mother was a teacher at a local high school James once attended. While James felt obligated to work for his father, he always had a dream of moving to Los Angeles and becoming an actor. He had done some acting in plays in high school, and he'd been told he was quite good. In an era where many loved streaming TV shows, James loved movies. He wanted to be a star in Hollywood. One day, James sat down with his mom and dad and expressed his feelings and desire. His parents were surprised but not against the idea. However, they also did not know much about Los Angeles. They knew it was a big city, and they knew James could end up going down a dark road in such a situation. His mother encouraged him to bring his Bible and find a church. James said yes, but he wasn't too concerned about all of that. James set off for LA in his old Ford truck a couple of weeks later. James got to LA and found a small studio apartment. Rent was expensive in LA, but he had money saved up from working for his father for so many years. Still, he needed extra money in LA, so James landed a job as a night janitor at a local school. During the day, he would go to coffee shops and other places in hopes of finding connections and landing acting auditions. One day, James was at a coffee shop when he saw a group of people around his age. They did not dress like him, as James still wore his old blue jeans, a t-shirt, and a ball cap. Meanwhile, the group of people he saw had clothes on he'd never seen before coming to LA. Nevertheless, James wanted to make friends. He was all alone, so he walked over and introduced himself. The group of people were kind, which was encouraging as James had heard horror stories in Oklahoma about people in LA were rude and inconsiderate. They even invited him to a party on Saturday night in the hills. James was thrilled. He even went and used some of his extra money to buy a denim jacket and slim-fit trendy jeans. He also felt he'd ditch his old work boots for a pair of fancy sneakers. James felt that he was making it in LA. He saw his old Bible in his truck still, but he did not pick it up. On Saturday night, James's friends picked him up and they went to the party. This was an extremely different party than the ones James ever encountered in Oklahoma. He remembered tailgates and throwing footballs in the middle of nowhere back home. This party had people wearing clothes he'd never seen before while sipping on cocktails he had never heard of. The stories he heard back from Oklahoma felt more true here. No one reached out to him at the party, and James's friends even caught up with other friends at one point during the night, leaving him all alone. James walked over to the edge of the house and looked at the view. It went for miles as he felt he could see all of LA. Still, James felt alone deep down, but he kept up a smile as he chased his acting dream. He wanted to prove himself to his hometown. At that moment, a man walked over and tapped him on the shoulder. The man was in his 40s with a messy beard and slicked back hair. The man asked James about his story. James, of course, explained his move to LA and how he had big acting dreams. The man told him he could get him an acting audition for a show James had never heard of. Although James wanted to be in movies, he was more than willing to begin with a TV show. The moment made James's night. He was thrilled. However, at the end of the night, James noticed his friends were nowhere to be found. Their car was gone. They had left him all alone at the party. Maybe those stories from Oklahoma were true. James attempted to call an Uber, which took around 40 minutes to pick him up. He was already low on money, so the Uber ride was not ideal for him. The next day, James drove to the address the man from the party had given. He was excited despite the rough ending to the night on Saturday. When he got to the address, however, it was just an old parking lot. James did not know what was going on. Also, no one was there. After 20 minutes passed, James almost gave up and headed back to his apartment. At that moment, however, a small black car pulled up. James was excited and got out of his old Ford. However, he was not expecting what happened next. 3 men emerged from the vehicle, including the man from the night before. The man walked in front while the other 2 stood behind him while holding guns. The man instructed James to hand over his wallet and car keys. James had been robbed. They drove off with his car and wallet, and James was left in shock. He couldn't believe what just happened. He didn't have enough money left to call an Uber at this point from his janitor job, as his next paycheck wasn't set to be received until the following week. James had to walk through the crowded LA streets at night. Instead of going straight home, he walked through an old park where he saw an old man sitting on a bench. The man looked friendly. At first, James was hesitant given what had just occurred, but the man noticed the nervous look on his face. He motioned for James to come over and sit. James sat down and at first nothing was said. After a minute or two, the man asked what was bothering James. James, who had been holding in emotion for quite some time, grew teary-eyed and told the man his whole story. The man asked James if acting was truly something he wanted to do, or if it was more about proving he could be someone in the big city. That question stayed with James for a while. He told the man he wasn't sure, but James felt that he was onto something. Perhaps chasing fame and fortune was something he felt pushed to do, as opposed to something he actually wanted to do. James woke up the next morning in his apartment. He knew he had to do something after being robbed. He walked down to the police station and asked if his 2005 Ford truck had been found. Sure enough, the cops said they found it. It had some damage, but it was still able to be driven. When James saw his car, he felt a sense of both anger and relief. He couldn't believe he had allowed this to happen. but he was happy his car came back to him. In the shotgun seat, James's old dusty Bible was open. He couldn't believe what he saw next, as he picked up the book, and the first verses he read brought tears to his eyes. 1 Timothy 6:6-10. But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. James then drove around for a bit. He did not know how the Bible opened to that verse, but it was becoming clear that he needed to change his priorities. He had been focused on his own desires, yet he wasn't sure what he truly even wanted deep down. All he knew was that he loved his family. James ended up at an old church in LA after driving around for a while. He walked in, and toward the front of the pews he saw a familiar face. It was the old man that he'd met in the park the night before. James told the man he had an answer for his question. He said he knew God was calling him to return back home. He knew the big city life wasn't for him, and he'd rather live a quiet life near family. The old man smiled. He said he was proud of him. James said the old man could always visit him in Oklahoma if he ever found himself near the city. James went back to his apartment and told his parents the news, and they were thrilled. He did not know what he was going to do back home, but he knew that being near family and living a life that honored the Lord would be far more fulfilling than chasing fame and fortune in Hollywood. A few years down the road, James was 29 and living in his same small town in Oklahoma. He didn't have any underlying desire to leave this time, though. He landed a job at his old high school as an acting teacher, and he still helped his dad at his auto shop when he had time. It wasn't a glorious life, but it was a good one. James was home.